Hello and welcome to another episode of Eva Talk by 10 Times. This is your host, Sonia Agrawal, and today we are diving into mastering the art of end-to-end event management. Whether you are planning your first event or you are a seasoned professional, mastering the entire event process requires a blend of creativity, strategic thinking, and proper execution. So we are thrilled to have a special guest with us today, Shane Buzza, Director at Blu Event Productions. Shane is an industry expert who will share some invaluable insights into the key aspects of successful event planning and management. Hello, Shane. Welcome to the podcast. We are very thankful for you to join us today.
Thanks for having me. It's really nice to be here, and I appreciate we're chatting from opposite ends of the world. But no, it was really nice of you to reach out, and I'm really happy to be here and chat through that whole end-to-end experience, like you mentioned.
Oh, great. So we are really honored to have you here. And moving towards our first question, whenever we talk about an event, the very first thing that comes is sitting with a client. So, what are the some essential elements you believe should be covered during that initial consultation to ensure a seamless event experience?
I mean, it's a broad question, but we one of the first things we try to establish is what the guest is trying to achieve. What are their objectives? Because ultimately, that is then going to lead us in the direction of how we put the concepts together, how we put the budgets together, but how we just create that experience for them and their guests based on what excuse me, what they're hoping to achieve at the end of it all. Because if we can tick that off and have that achievement, whether it's through financial of raising money, financial of making money, um, brand awareness, X number of guests, whatever it is, that's what we strive towards.
So, you are basically trying to tell us getting brief about the things, and proper conversation is something which is very important in the first initial phase, right?
Oh, absolutely, and we genuinely try to collaborate with our clients as well. So having that understanding of what the end objective is, and then working with the client in order to achieve that, it just means that the experience along the way, because it's not always easy, as you and the listeners know, it can be really tough planning and delivering an event. But if you've got good collaboration, good communication, a clear delineation of roles and responsibilities, uh, it's going to go a long way towards executing and delivering a successful event at the end of it all. And one that you have a high five and a smile and a beer at the end of it as well.
Well said, said very rightly. So, I think there is another one important factor that comes whenever we are planning an event, and that is related to vendor selection. How do you see the importance of vendor selection in the entire event management process? And what criteria should planners use to choose the right partners?
Um, when it comes to vendors, we work with a lot of vendors ongoing, but at the same time, one of the first questions I ask a new client, especially, and I had this experience yesterday, I ask them what existing relationships they already have, especially when it comes to a cultural event or a not-for-profit event. Any existing relationships, we very much encourage that to be maintained and to bring them on board, because those existing relationships from a vendor perspective are going to have already a clear existing view on who the brand is or who that organization is. Whether it's a not-for-profit, they're going to understand that fundraising is often going to be a key objective, and they'll work with us in trying to achieve that. So yeah, that's one of the first things we ask is what existing relationships you have. And then we dig into our bag of tricks if and when we need it. But we also we do give real consideration to the type of event it is when selecting vendors. If there's a big difference between a community event in a small park versus a large expo style event with thousands of people at a major exhibition center. So you have to read the room as well and give those considerations serious thought, because if you invite a vendor along and it's just not the right fit, they're not going to work. They're not going to want to work with you again. So we give real consideration to that and make sure that we're also working with vendors who we continue and maintain a relationship ongoing, which we've been able to do. And we're very lucky that most vendors, when we give them a call, they answer our calls because they know that we're calling them with an event that is going to align with what their brand is, and bring them into an environment that works for whatever it is, whether it's something they're selling or activating. They know it's going to be a good fit.
That's very appropriate. Like if you get into that room, the thing that you use, no, understanding your venue partners. So that is something which is very crucial, I think, before deciding on anything. So that's a very good point we discussed here. And now looking towards another important consideration when planning and preparation, and it is something related to compliance. What are some primary compliance considerations that every event planner must keep in mind when they are planning an event?
It's another very broad question. It's something that we hold extremely highly. We produce a lot of outdoor events, and when you produce an outdoor event, especially with a blank canvas, compliance becomes probably the number one element, or I guess sector of the event that needs to have focus on. Often with an outdoor event, permitting is required, and especially in Australia, and even more especially in Victoria, Melbourne, where we're based. Risk management plans are pretty much one of the first documents that is produced, and something that we produce in-house here, and we're able to, I guess, tap into experiences, but just skill set and knowledge in this area in order to put something together that councils and venues can look at and very quickly be aware that when working with us, we have a good understanding of this. Because yes, there is, sorry, excuse me. Sorry, I've had a bit of a sore throat this week. Whilst the guest experience and the client objectives are key, the other key element of putting on an event is keeping everyone safe. And keeping everyone safe is very much a part of the compliance element. And as I said, it's become so crucial and critical in what we do. And we sit around and look at what type of event is it, what's the location. For example, we do a lot of events at an airport here in Melbourne, and so it's always windy. There is always strong winds. So whatever the wind gusts are in the weather forecast, we have to elevate that and ensure that we're setting everything up in accordance to what those wind gusts and wind ratings are. I mean, it's also one of the more boring parts of an event, to be honest, but at the same time, it's just so, as I said, crucial and critical, and it can be very uncomfortable if you're not experienced firsthand in dealing with compliance, or you don't have that skill set. It can be a really uncomfortable and awkward conversation. But at Blu Event Productions, we try to get our new staff accustomed to that process as soon as possible, because it is so important. And as I mentioned before, risk management plans are something that we take very seriously, because yes, budgeting is important, but your risk management plan becomes a bit of a Bible. And too often we create something that is just done for the sake of ticking off a box. And if there is an emergency or an incident at a report, more often than not, no one has read that risk management plan. But so long as the producer has key stakeholders that are part of the event delivery, they're aware of what that risk management plan is. And by that, I mean actually contributing to the preparation of it, which means they're familiar with it, then they'll be able to at least be as calm as possible and carry out what that risk management plan actually says. So that also, parlays into, and apologies, it's going to be a bit of a boring little section here, but we're very big on ensuring that ballasts are critical, and engineering, and all these, I guess, boxes are ticked, but not just ticked, that there is an understanding. So again, we make sure that the staff understand what an engineer certification is. We make sure they know what ballast means. And we're doing an event at the moment where it required 40 ton of ballast, and the client scratched their head a bit and didn't quite understand why that was needed, because the other thing is it comes at a considerable cost. But at the same time, without that ballast, which for anyone listening and doesn't understand what a ballast is, it's the weights that effectively weigh down temporary infrastructures and things like that. And so when we're establishing through an engineer what those ballasts are, we have to go and source them. They cost money. The client doesn't always want to pay for that, but at the same time, if the ballasts aren't put forward, or if we don't comply with what the engineer says, the council won't actually allow you to put an event on. And that's why it's, again, just becomes so crucial and critical. And it's an important part of the, some of the early conversations with a client who wants to put on an outdoor event. Again, if they need to have an understanding that by putting on an outdoor event, they need to factor into their budget things like engineering, things like ballast, risk management plans, emergency management plans, wardens, fire extinguishers, all these elements, and ramps, especially, as part of the compliance measures that we put forward. Ramps are pretty much a requirement for every stage that you set up for an event, outdoor especially, but I mean, just stages in general. You think about ramps, okay, you need a ramp for your event, but a ramp could end up being 15 meters, depending on how high the stage is. So you have to figure out, do we actually have 15 meters in the footprint to create this ramp? So, without rambling on too much on this topic, because I appreciate it's not always the most exciting and sexy one, you can probably see just how crucial and critical, this topic is at the very start of, event discussions, especially with a new event.
I think you have covered very appropriately, like how proactive plans can really smooth things. And this is something which can help even on the day of event. Suppose if we get any issue, or if we need to tackle such kind of compliance even on the day of event, if we face anything. So this is a very good backup plan, or everything that you have covered everything really so smoothly. And it was such a great answer that you gave to this question. And
Thank you. I feel like I could go on and on, but again, I don't want to, because it's just not a sexy topic. But what it also does, and this does come up quite a bit, as you get closer to an event, and we all look at, sorry, and again, I'm focusing on outdoor events here, but as you get closer and everyone's looking at the weather forecast as well,
Mhm.
there needs to be a pretty clear idea from everyone as to at what point do you cancel an event based
Mhm.
on weather and what you're putting on, and often it's not because you don't want to get people wet. It's about the safety of actually rolling it out on your patrons and all of that. So if there isn't a clear, I guess, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? If there isn't a very clear delineation around what uh, what would prompt the cancellation of an event, it becomes quite subjective. People would make an estimation based on their own opinion, and that's okay. But if there is something documented as part of the risk management plan, everyone at least understands or is working towards the same policy, if you will, as far as wind gusts, weather, and things like that. So, again, apologies for this not being a
No,
sexy topic, but
no, no.
it's the reality of determining when you cancel an event.
Uh, that's great. Um, Now let's this change the topic a little bit. Like, let's talk something about the future. I mean, hybrid events are on rise, and they are literally shaking up the industry. So, with rise of such events, how do you see the landscape of event management changing?
Uh, Personally, I'm not a fan of the whole hybrid events and what they do. I understand the importance of them, but I feel it's more of a conference landscape where hybrid events have become, more prominent, especially since COVID, of course. And I guess
Hmm.
that one of the one of the no-brainers is that it saves companies a lot of money not having to fly people all over the world. But I mean, you asked me on my view on it. I'm just not a big fan because I feel one of the key elements of what events do is to bring people together. And when you're removing that by rolling out a hybrid event, you're removing that human to human engagement, that real, I guess, connection that you feel when you're meeting someone for the first time or seeing someone that you haven't seen in a long time, or someone you may have worked with, or someone you've seen on LinkedIn who you want to go and approach and ask questions for, and just have that one-on-one time and personal connection, or talk in a group, whatever that might be, or at the end of an event, you all go and grab a beer or a drink afterwards and continue the conversations around your professional field. I just feel hybrid, it just takes that away and removes it altogether. You're all sitting in your offices or at home looking at a screen, and it just, people are a bit maybe reluctant to contribute to a conversation, or could turn their camera off, of course, and go off and stop listening to what the topic is. So again, that's just my opinion. I'm not a big fan of what hybrid has brought since COVID. Um, so yeah, it's human connection and physical presence at an event every day of the week for me.
Okay, that's fine. It may vary from person to person, and I actually agree with the point that it's people to people connection. So physical event is something which actually can't be replaced by virtual, but it's virtual is just an option if you won't be able to make it physical. So
Oh, for
I
sure.
think,
As I said,
yeah,
I understand it. I do understand it, and there is a place for it. I'm not saying that we should abolish them and never
yeah,
roll them out
yeah.
ever. It's just purely opinion. If clients come to me and ask for my preference, I'm going to tell them to
Mm-hmm.
have a physical event every day of the week. But at the same time, if you're putting on an event that requires people from across the world, then the
Mm-hmm.
reality is hybrid is going to be something discussed as an option to enable more people to be present. So, I'm professional enough to understand where it sits in the events landscape. It's just not something I love to be part of. But as I have, we as a company have produced them before, and it's gone really well with the client. But I'd rather be there every day of the week.
Okay. So, Shane, before we wrap up, if you can share a quick advice for everyone listening out here, how they can master the end-to-end event management, like any important or critical takeaway that you'd like to share with us?
Look, I don't think I can provide anything that's going to be the absolute perfect method. I definitely haven't progressed in my career through a perfect method, but what I will say is to get involved and get as much experience in all the sectors. And by that, I mean community events, not for profit events, corporate events, work at venues, work in hospitality, work in event production, just as many areas that you can dip your toes into. It just means that your skill sets are going to be, so broad and vast that it's just so valuable on an event site when you have had that first-hand experience in all the different elements. And it takes time. It's not something that, what I just said doesn't happen in 6, 12 months. It takes a long time, but if you persevere and you've got the patience and the ambition to be a part of different, you know, uh, sectors of the event landscape, it's going to put you in much better stead. And it also helps you to establish which part of the event industry is best for you. What fascinates you and excites you the most about event management and event production. It might be that sales is where you want to be, but you don't know that until you take on a role in sales and it's something that you really warm to. For me, it was just about being out there on the event site, and being a part of that event production piece and putting it all together. That took years of working in all different areas of the industry to establish what worked for me.
That's a very, very good advice. Like exploring different fields actually helps one understand what excites them most. So this is something which is a very excellent advice that you leave us with. And thank you so much,
Thank
Shane,
you.
for sharing your valuable insights with us today. From setting a strong foundation with clients to navigating compliance and embracing the future of hybrid events, there was so much to take away. And I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot about mastering the end-to-end event management. So until next time, keep innovating and making every event unforgettable. We'll be back with another video very soon. So thank you